Well, that was a fascinating discussion, a great one to end our day on. So I wanted to officially introduce our newest Devexer, Colin Lynch. He is new to Devex. He's probably not a new name to many of you if you followed his work at FP and Washington Post before, nor are you new to this Unga madness.
No, unfortunately.
But maybe new to looking at it through a new Devex lens. So, Colin, could you just quickly talk about what your impressions of this week has been so far, and how you're seeing the conversations and anything that stood out for you?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing was the difference in terms of focus from the US, the developing world, France, UK, the US, focusing this on sort of the geostrategic struggle with Russia and trying to get the world to kind of rally behind their position. And then I think a lot of sense from the developing world that there was a need to sort of focus on some of the issues of failures to meet obligations, commitments that the developing world has made on commitments from the SDG to climate, to food security, and a whole list of other issues. So I think there was a certain amount of tension in there, and also just it was just interesting to see people back sort of in person. We've been, like everybody else, isolated over the last couple of years with the pandemic. So I mean, I think that was the biggest sort of takeaway, and sort of gradually getting back into the swing of things here.
And so you will be continuing to cover the UN and all the institutions around it for DevX. What are the stories you're going to be looking for? What can we expect to see coming out with your byline?
So, in the past, I mean, my background is kind of national security diplomacy, but I've also written pretty intensively on UN institutions and other institutions, including involving development. And basically, the whole approach is to sort of really look very closely at the institutions, but also to find stories that make it worth reading about it. So, I've written stories, really deep dives on obscure UN agencies, OIOS, if any of you know who that is. That's the internal investigation outfit for the UN. I've written thousands of words on that. So I will be looking to do that at some of the institutions, looking closely at UNICEF, UNHCR, FAO. I've written sort of stories about the geostrategic struggles between China and the US at the FAO, sort of focused on the last campaign for Chinese leadership of the FAO and sort of how the US managed their campaign. So I will try and find stories that are just inherently readable, interesting, and try to illuminate sort of more obscure elements for a broader readership on some of these institutions. So less on the JCPOA and WMD, and a bit more on some of the development operations at the UN, but really looking for stories.
Well, we look forward to reading those. And if you aren't subscribed to Devex Newswire or other newsletters where you can read Colum and all the other reporters reporting, make sure you do so. We also, a little plug, have a email book coming out at the discount to our Devex Pro membership to make sure you get access to all of our insights. But we are wrapping up today. I do want to give a special thank you to all of our partners, again, who helped make this possible, help make our reporting possible. So our innovation partners, Accenture, European Investment Bank, Illumina, Medtronic Labs, PIND, Pfizer, OneSite, Essilor Lexicta Foundation, Visa, and USP, and our ecosystem partners that hosted events with us in the mornings, ANZ, Bechtel.org, Circle, FinDev Canada, MSD for Mothers, Pollination, Sabin Vaccine Institute, Stop TB Partnership, and the World Food Program USA. And then, of course, our reception partners, which we're just about to begin, Illumina and Food for the Hungry. Food for the Hungry is our reception partner for today. So thank you, and you can thank them. They have a lot of their team members here for helping provide the drinks and beverage we're about to have. Also, our supporting partner, Micronutrient Forum. We do have a lot more DevX events in the pipeline, so keep an eye out for those. We'll have DevX Invested in London in October. We'll be at COP in Sharm el Sheikh in November. We'll be in San Francisco for our Health and Tech Conference. And for the first time, we will actually be at South by Southwest, where we are doing a DevX Dish event. So stay tuned for all of those. Thank you for everyone who joined online. We appreciate your involvement. All of our other events will also be online. And for all of you in the room, please stay for reception. But first, I would like to welcome to the stage Mark Fiso, who is the president of Food for the Hungry, to say a few words. Thanks, Mark.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Devex, for a great 2 days. We made it, the end of the 2 days. It's a real delight to be able to, in a minute, invite you all to a reception in the back. But even more so, a great privilege to have been part of the conversations this last week here in New York, after 3 years of all of us being away, and even more than that, to participate in the conversation here with you all and at Devex. You know, as I reflect back and think of the things we've heard over this week, the state of the world can seem sobering, if not dire. You know, it seems like we are increasingly having more complex, interdependent challenges and problems that would leave us despondent. But at the same time, we exist in a time of great abundance and prosperity, and most encouragingly, a rapidly emerging and converging set of new technologies that create an opportunity, a promise of solutions that just a few years ago we would have been unthinkable, unimaginable. And so my hope is that as we, each of us collectively and individually, confront both the challenge of the state of the world and the opportunities that we have, that we would recognize and affirm that broken systems and structures and dynamics perpetuate an imbalance, an equitable imbalance of power that creates and has caused and exacerbates poverty, injustice, and marginalization. And that we have an opportunity, as we still stare in the face of this well-known $3 trillion gap between achieving the Sustainable Development Goals in just a little more than 7 years, to challenge ourselves to reimagine collectively and individually what we do and how we do it, to think and act differently, to find a way to do more with what we have so we can achieve those collectively affirmed goals. For Food for the Hungry, as our name suggests, we have over 50 years of experience and commitment to food security, sustainable agriculture, nutrition, and we do lots of other things: humanitarian response, livelihoods, education, water, social behavior change. But we at Food for the Hungry have decided to challenge ourselves to reimagine what our role will be going forward in this increasingly complex world, and to challenge our assumptions and to look at how we would add value differently in different ways. So we've decided to adopt resilience as the organizing lens to see our role for our programming and how we would add value. To do that, we're trying to put those we serve, our users, we heard that earlier today, at the center of all we do, and hopefully catalyze ownership so they can own their future. And we're using human-centered design as a way to challenge ourselves to do that. We're embracing systems thinking to understand how do we restore broken systems and structures so that ultimately we can catalyze sustained shared resilience, so that people are whole, people are vibrant, people are capable, so that we can adapt to predictable and, even more importantly, unpredictable challenges that are ahead of us. We haven't figured it out, which is why we're so grateful to have been here this week and with you all these last 2 days at Devex, so thanks for having us. But our hope is that as we move forward, we'll fail, but we'll pick ourselves up and figure it out collectively with you all. So in the back, before you grab your drink, there are a couple of quizzes for you to take. And if the drink isn't prize enough, there's a little prize of these little glowing things. If you get 3 answers right, it's an honor system, I think. We might have umpires around, I'm not sure, but you can take that gift home. But before we do that, I have the privilege of being able to introduce the executive director of SDG2 Advocacy Hub, Paul Newman, who leads an organization, initiative that is collaborating with a diverse set of actors, from NGOs to the UN to private sector, farmers, chefs, to discover and build powerful ways to achieve SDG 2, overcoming hunger, ending malnutrition. Paul.
Well, thank you. And I am aware that I am right between you and a glass of wine. So I'm going to be brief, but hopefully we're going to encourage conversation, because that's what this is all about. It's about hearing from one another, getting perspectives, and then connecting dots. And one of the things that we realize is that food is an ultimate connector. It connects us in so many different ways. We come together around tables, we look at traditions, we look at culture, we enjoy food, we celebrate, we laugh, we share. And this is what we need in our world at the moment, is coming together. That's one theme that I've seen: connecting things, connecting climate, connecting the food crisis, connecting some of the different challenges we face, but then overcoming them through a framework. At the SDG2 Hub, one of the things we believe in is the power of chefs to curate conversation and to drive action on a plate. I was with Sam Cass, who was the head of food policy at the White House and the chef for the Obamas, just this morning, and he was talking about the fact of how you can bring together something practical and do something on a plate. You can bring forward the future that you want to see. And the Chef's Manifesto is a framework that connects chefs to the SDGs. You can look it up. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but what I am going to do is invite one of the chefs that's been active in our program, Chef Grace Ramirez, who is based here in New York. And Chef Grace has been super active in this program. But what I love about Chef Grace, and you can talk and tell us quick reflections, is she listens, hears, writes notes in these meetings, and then goes away and does it. And we've been talking about an idea about trying to increase bean consumption globally that we want to launch later this year. And Chef Grace took it and she went, beans, I can get people to eat more beans. And she's already delivering a project that's having massive impact. So I'm going to ask her, she's an ambassador for World Central Kitchen, been very active in the response here in New York City. But just a couple of quick reflections, and then we'll go head up the back, we'll grab some wine, and people can come and follow up.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, we're very aware that everyone wants wine at this point. But I think that the biggest message for me, I think that we go to a lot of these conferences and we hear a lot of problems, right? And how do we come up with solutions? It's my thing. I'm all about a problem solver. So usually Paul says, we have a problem, we need to make the world consume more beans. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. And for example, I partnered with Wellness in the School, an organization here in New York City, to basically incorporate beans, but that are delicious and culturally relevant to our culture. Obviously, I'm Latina, but it was like, how can I make a delicious bean that can be scalable and that it's culturally relevant to us? So we're incorporating that in the school system, but then I also partner with Aramark, and we're going to be we are in 80 universities across the country where we also incorporated beans, and it's crazy because I taste the beans and they're like my grandmother's beans. So I think we're gonna really hit that mark of duplicating bean consumption. Single-handedly, I've been doing that, but I think that the biggest message for me here is we all know we have a lot of problems in our food system, but it is to each individual person, and that's what we're talking about today, to become a conscious consumer. It starts not only with us chefs, but you guys have the buying power. You guys need to become conscious consumers into really understanding that we need to move towards a future where we understand seasonality, where we understand sustainability, and we are understanding the problem and are trying to be part of the solution. Because, if I go to a restaurant and I'm going to demand that branzino that comes from Italy, it's very hard for us chefs to do our job. So I think that, we have a job to educate the consumer, but also the consumer has a very important role to become a little bit more educated and really move the needle of because we know we're in trouble, but I'm hopeful always. And I think that we just have to, be part of the solution.
Well, thank you, Chef Grace. And I do think this is a two-way. I would encourage you all, when you go out for dinner next, ask for the chef to come out, say hello, ask them what they care about, what are they working on. This will bring more people into the conversation, and the chefs should be doing that as well. And so I think if we do this, really helps drive a transformation in the food system. So I just want to say thank you to Food for the Hungry, to Devex, and all the other partners for having us here. Please go, make sure you see the quiz. I'm going to go down there and see if we can answer some of those questions and enjoy a glass of wine. Please come up and have a chat with Chef Grace or myself if you want to find out more about the work that we do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.